What is going on? You are watching Tags Live and listening as well to our Wednesday night live podcast. I'm Steve V, your host, joined by my beautiful, handsome co-host, Kodi.
Me?
Yeah, Kodi Maurice Doggette.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Hello, darling. Cheers. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day.
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
what are we?
I got that.
What are we drinking?
It's a vodka cranberry lemonade. So, I had to get a little all the flavors going on today.
I love it. I've got a wine spritzer. We're going strong here. We are very happy to be a part of the Get Vocal application here every Wednesday night, which is a part of the Connection Zone, which is about relationships, sex, and everything in between. So we are here every Wednesday, 9 p.m. I know we are streaming on our YouTube channel and I believe our Facebook channel. We welcome you to join in the conversation. If you're on our Get Vocal platform, we will look at your comments to the left, and we will try to get over to YouTube and Facebook. No promises, though. A little bit later, we've got so much to go in this next hour, including our special guest who's going to come on in a little later in the show, author Ste7en Foster with his brand new memoir book called The Last Alias. I just completed reading the whole book. It's a page turner. Cannot wait to get into that. So much fun. But Kodi,
yes,
you and I were in upstate New York last week, a week ago, and we tried to shoot this show. So for you guys that were trying to look at it live, we were in an Airstream in upstate.
Good luck to them.
Yeah. And right before we went on, the winds were so heavy that all the electricity went out. And here we are, like, piecing together wires to try and go live on our Get Vocal, and it just didn't happen. We recorded the show. So if you guys hopefully got it in your podcast feed, how much fun did you have in upstate New York?
I had such an amazing time. It was so great. It was good to be out in nature. We went for a beautiful, lovely hike, and it wasn't like up the mountains and down. I didn't think I was going to die at any time. So it was great. I enjoyed the beauty of upstate and how much peace it just gave me. So thank you.
I cannot.
What about you?
Yeah, I can't highly recommend something like this. During these times, I know we all had trips planned that got canceled. Mm-hmm. If you can get away to nature.
Yes.
And I know I needed this so much. I mean, I've been in this apartment box, and aside from going out, riding bikes, and errands and such in New York City is a concrete jungle. And I had all these trips planned, of course, that were canceled, which we're adapting. Going to upstate, where we went to Kingston, to Boysville, and to the classic Woodstock. Really, I think it nourished my soul. It was what I needed. Do you not agree?
I agree with you 100%. It just was. It's good to get out and be able to just let loose in nature, and we did let loose.
Yeah, Kodi was on his grinder nonstop, and
not nonstop. Come on now. I had to stop because my service went out.
And you know what? There's something for everybody up there. And for me, it was really refreshing because I've gone to Long Island before, and no offense to people that live in the Hamptons and all that. It's just not really for me. I decided where we were at is so the people are down to earth. There's gay people like, we had so much fun. And if you want to hook up, there were people on the apps that were saying, obviously you could hook up with somebody and have sex a little bit later in that day. Or people were saying, hey, do you want to get together and go on a hike? And I'm all about that. Next time
And
I
there
might.
were people that I had spoken to previously that were up there. I don't know why they were up there. I don't know how they were up there, but they were up there and I had spoken to them previously. And we kind of reconnected, not like in person, unfortunately, but we like started chatting again. So that was cool.
We were so crazy at one point because we were staying in a classic Airstream on our friend's acre of property, and they have a house which is really a barn, which is really amazing, renovated and all. And they have a swing, if you can believe it. Of course, they have a swing that's attached to a really classic old tree. And I had this fantasy in my mind that I wanted to strip naked and ride on that. And you're like, and I just saw your face when I was suggesting, you're like, go ahead, sure.
I mean, do you live your life by any means? Just do what you got to do. But I'm not getting on that thing naked. I don't know. Well, it is too cold for that.
It was too cold. It was too cold. So I will do it next springtime when it's a little bit warmer. So yeah, but so much fun. Can't wait to get back there. So nourishing for our soul. Couple of announcements that we of course want to, I really want to make this PSA announcement real quick. Is tomorrow is the last day that you can fill out your census. Kodi, have you filled out the census for 2020?
I guess I'm doing it tonight. I haven't done it yet. I need to get on that, don't I? I feel ashamed now.
And just not to belabor a point, but the census, wherever you live in the States, gives money to your city, and money from the government goes to your program, to programs that are highly needed. And particularly, I couldn't think of a better time now to fill out the census. It's so critically important because it really means funding for what's going to happen wherever it is that you live in our falling apart United States of America. But you can do something. Pretty much. Anyway, you have until tomorrow. I think you can do it tomorrow. And what you can do, all you got to do, maybe Kodi, you can put it in our little thing. It's go to 2020census.gov. And it's I did it early on. You just fill it out and do it. It's really, really important. You will benefit from it. A couple other announcements. If you're looking for something to do, New Fest, the LGBTQ Film Festival, is happening this weekend, October 16th through the 27th. There's some really great films. Frank Pond, I think you're watching. You gave me some really great ones to watch. It's all virtual this year, of course. So it means that New Fest, which is here in New York City, now you can watch it in your home. And there's one I already bought a ticket to called Sublet, which really looks like an interesting film about a writer that is a little disgruntled with life and in his relationship, and sublets an apartment in Tel Aviv, and with a 25-year-old that owns the apartment, and they have this interesting relationship, and I'm all about it. So Kodi, if you want to watch it together, we can watch it.
I can't wait.
Movie night. I
know. We got so much to watch on movie night.
It's the best time of the year.
Best time of the year.
Sorry, that's a shout out to Treat Yourself. Yesterday was Treat Yourself, and Kodi is all about treat yourself. And
I treat myself like almost every day, actually. Has to be at least once a week.
It's the best time of the year.
It's the best time of the week. It's the best time of every 3 days.
Yes. Okay, let me get through these announcements.
All right. Sorry.
I know. Take our poll this week. We are doing a poll. You can go to patreon.com/talk about gay sex. And all the questions are related to Tuesday's podcast with my other co-hosts, Jeremy Russ Lopez and Lincoln. We want to hear from you. Again, patreon.com/talk about gay sex. And lastly, it's Hispanic Heritage Month.
So good. So wonderful. I'm so happy.
Kodi, how do you, I want to hear from you because it's an important thing, I think, that we celebrate, because I'm Mexican American and have relatives and everything. And we celebrate, grew up Mexican American. My parents grew up in East LA. And I've really embraced it via the food. I don't speak fluent Spanish, but I can get by and do okay. And I have a lot of cultures that are really important to me. Tell us your background.
Puerto Rican descent and African American descent. Yes.
Did you grow up at all with the Puerto Rican side? I'm just curious.
Oh, yes. My mom did a great job of exposing us to both cultures, but like I grew up with arroz con gandules, pernil on the holidays, like salsa merengue, music around the house growing up. Oh, I can dance. I can dance my ass off. Okay.
It's weird because I feel like I have, Puerto Ricans, it's all about that salsa and the music. And Mexicans have it too, but I feel like I have a little Puerto Rican in me. I adopted it.
You know what?
But they could be Mexican and they're so different. The food is completely different. Growing up, did people understand your biracial, or did they kind of lump you into one or the other category?
So I think that people had a preconceived notion about just based on what I look like, about what my ethnicity and what my culture would be. So it was hard for me growing up. Like I felt like I had to decide one or the other. But as I grew up and I grew more into exploring my culture and learning more about it, that I don't have to choose. I'm both. I'm proud to be a Black American. I'm proud to be a Puerto Rican American. So yeah, it's great. I love being Puerto Rican.
It's interesting. I was watching a show today. I record the show every day called Daily Pop, and they were celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and one of the reporters or the guys that's on there, Victor Cruz, so handsome, straight guy. You know him?
I love him. I love Victor Cruz. So I used to get mistaken for Victor Cruz back in high school. But...
Really? I couldn't see that. Well,
yeah.
One of the things he said was that he's half Black, half Puerto Rican.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And so one of the things that he said was when he would hang out with his brothers, African American brothers, he would say, "Oh, I'm going to go hook up with some of my Hispanic friends," and they'd be like, "Okay, we're out." And vice versa, he could never seem to kind of meld those two groups together, and it always was a thing for him. Did you ever notice that with you, or no?
Not really, because you know what? A lot of people in my family are mixed. I have like half white people in my family. I have a lot of half Black people in my family. I do have family in Puerto Rico, and I haven't really experienced it with them. I just feel like my family is just so all-encompassing, and I really am fortunate to be, accepted and loved in the family. And the friends that I have, they're so amazing. So yeah,
I'm sensing a Puerto Rico trip for you and I, a road trip.
When I am ready, I can introduce you to my great aunt. We can have some really good food. She would love you, actually.
Some plantains. I'm all about it.
Maduros,
Last question on this. Because I got this a lot. People, what are you? A lot of people here think, want to make me Puerto Rican. No, sorry. Have people always boxed you in or asked you, where are you from? The gays.
I used to get a lot. So the first time that I even really got questioned in the gay community was, what are you mixed with? And I get that all the time. Some people used to think that I was like half white, or especially if you saw my sister, she looks like straight Puerto Rican. Like right from the island, they plucked her off the island and threw her right in there. But then my brother, he looks more African American. I would say he's a little bit browner than we are. So yeah, I used to get a lot like, what are you mixed with? And the answer is, I'm half Puerto Rican, half Black.
I love it. Well, happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
To all of you out there, it's a wonderful culture. Find a way. There's so much great music and everything, food, everything in between, artists. And we are essentially a Latinx podcast.
Yes, we are, and proud of it.
Proud of it. Let's get into our next segment, which we like to call Vulnerable Voices.
Yay.
And, we've been exploring this since we started Tags Live. And I think one of the things we wanted to explore this time, it might relate to our guest that's going to come on a little bit later, Ste7en Foster, which is who we thought we were, at least, Kodi, before the pandemic, and who we are now is my question. Who are we becoming? So, I mean, I'll start a little bit just to get started. I was, at least in the gay community, or men, let's just keep it to that narrow thing right now, which is actually not that narrow. And sometimes I like it big and wide. And well, anyway.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Who I was before, in fact, it was a funny thing that came up over last week when we were in Upstate, because you and our host were laughing that I cooked up like this keto pumpkin bread, and everybody was like, Steve cooks? Like, it's like, I can fry up the bacon. I can,
get it in the pan, honey.
Exactly. I've got positions.
And guys, it was delicious. I just have to say that. Like, I was surprised, but it was amazing.
Thank you.
Because I've never had your food before, and it was amazing, Steve. So thank you for that. I'm going to come to your house for baked goods all the time.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Let's see if I make it. But, but yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of people thought like, oh, Steve's always out at night in the club scene. And I wasn't really out in the last several years in the club scene, but I would go out to bars and I was out late. Obviously, that's not happening at all. I have very few people that I see. And do I miss my former self? That occasionally I'll think, wow, it's interesting. It's like, 11:30 and I'm kind of like maybe packing it in. And that would be the time that I would actually be barely getting it together to go out at like 1 a.m. I've changed, I've adapted, and I've been changing and doing new things. And I wonder, whenever bars and everything starts opening, I'll go back, but it's not going to be the way it was before.
Yeah.
I think we've changed, and I definitely want to go to my favorite spots and give my business to some of these places that I always loved, but it's going to be a different,
I thought that sentence was going to end a different way, just so you know.
Oh, okay. But it's changed. I mean, what have you noticed about yourself what was different before about you?
So before the pandemic, I was dating somebody, and I was dating somebody, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder if I'm trying to put this as delicately as possible. We weren't clicking off. All 12 gears weren't firing. I don't know if that's a thing.
So the sex wasn't good.
Well, we actually didn't have sex, honestly, but the physical aspect of our relationship wasn't a problem. It was more on an emotional and mental level that he wasn't as open as I would have wanted him to be. But I thought that would change. I was like, oh, maybe, he just needs a little bit more time, because I'm a very private person as well. So I didn't think anything of it. So, It's
interesting.
What were you gonna say?
It's interesting because I remember when we started, we had another Thursday show that we don't do anymore, but we started it right in March when quarantine began. And I remember the early stories of you were about this guy that you had dated. And we're checking in every week to see how's it going with the guy. So you kind of went from pre-pandemic in this relationship to in the pandemic, and you guys did a good job of carrying on for a bit. I commend you for that. It's just that it ultimately didn't work out. And I think that's okay, right?
I think it's perfectly okay. During the pandemic, you kind of can gauge what is important to you in a relationship. I think it allowed everybody time to look within themselves, to, tweak different parts of themselves that they, and their relationship that they didn't know were not acceptable to them. So that was definitely an aspect of my life that I was like, oh, it made me really look at him and our relationship and how I was relating to him and how he was relating to me.
Oh,
So, yeah.
In terms of like dating now, because I know you're dating here and there, what have you
A
learned?
little bit, darling.
A little bit. What have you learned about dating in this new arena now that is different from maybe when you would have dated pre-pandemic?
So now when you're not allowed to, well, when you're, I'm actually like scared to actually be close to somebody or in somebody's face, especially when you just meet them or you don't really know them from Tom's cat, house cat, or whatever the phrase is. So I find that it's more about dating now is more about the mental connection and can you communicate with that person? So a lot of the dates that I'm going on now, I'm checking to see, do I have more than just a physical connection to this person? So I would say that. What about you?
I haven't gone on a lot of dates, but yeah, I would say the people that I have gone on or hung out with, conversations are definitely different because we're not talking about the last trip we went on or where we were out at a bar last night or things of that nature. Life has simplified a lot more. And I think that's kind of cool. So I find I consider myself, I interview a lot of people. I've always been a good listener in general.
Yeah.
But if I would go on dates or hang out with people, I'm looking for people that are also good listeners too, because we all don't have a lot of tales to tell in terms of trips and all those things that we did that were super fun and exciting. But, I'm not going to that Janet Jackson concert, or I didn't just get back from, I know, hopefully someday.
I miss her so much.
Me too. So, I find conversations are a little bit more intense and stripped down. And I like that. I think it's stripped down my world a lot. And I find I'm looking for people like that. And I think that that's important to explore those issues. In terms of like sex, there was one guy I was talking about before that I was dating and that lived in my building, and it was what it was. But I've said before, he came at the right time, and we were dating and having sex. Turns out he lived in my building, and I think he came at the right time. And I think we were adult about it in terms of like he still follows the show, and I see him periodically in the lobby, and we didn't get to like a hateful place or anything like that, so it's all good.
That's very mature of you both.
I thank you. Yes, I agree.
You're welcome. Well, as far as sex is concerned, for me, I've gotten to learn my body very, very well.
Yeah.
And I like.
Are you still 80-20? Meaning 80% top, 20%?
It changes. You know what? That is constantly in flux. And that's what I've come to learn about myself. And some of the conversations we've had on here, especially with Corey, remember Corey Harmon?
Yeah.
The sex
toys.
The sex toy talk with him, that was very illuminating to me. So I'm learning a whole bunch.
Yeah, I think one of the words, and we now do a weekly after show on our Patreon. Kodi and I did it last week, and every week, if you come in at the first tier, we do a tags after show. And I get to explore other topics, expand on them. And this week I'm talking about adaptability. And I think that's a key word, is how are you able to adapt, not regret. I was just looking at Deepak Chopra, who I'm just a big fan of. He's just like, he always has the words that I need to hear that nourish me. And Deepak was saying it's all about not looking back on what we've lost, and we are not ever going to be those people. I truly believe I am no longer that person. I am that person, but I am not the person that I was. But I've adapting and changing to, as we all should be in general, I think, but particularly with the crisis and the pandemic and everything that's been going on, you have to adapt. And relationships come in all packages. You and I have become really close.
I know,
wonderful,
especially during the pandemic. It's so amazing to me.
Yes,
I've gotten closer to like my mom. I talk to my mom every day. I talk to my sister more than I did before, and my friends.
I agree. I talk to my mother all the time. I just got off the phone right before we went live. And it's these relationships are really important, and I think there's some goodness but it's about adapting to the newness of what is and what will become. And I think if you just have an open heart with that, you can hopefully find that, and sex can somehow manifest into all that. But
I cannot wait for sex to manifest.
I hear you.
Did you hear the thirst in the way I delivered that?
I did hear it. Before our first guest comes in, we only have a couple minutes. We were going to get to, you know what, we'll get to that other hot topic that we were going to talk about next time. But one of my pet peeves that I just brought a mask up here is when people wear their mask and they have their nose like, it's like, why bother? And have you seen that a lot? It's like,
I give them all the dirty looks. Trust me.
Me too. I got my hair faded today, and thanks. But like the two barbers I've had at this place do that. They have it like hanging like this.
No, and your barber. He's so close to you.
I should say something, right?
I think
just
you
mind.
I would.
Because they're still breathing on top of you and their nose is exposed, and it's like,
yeah. I don't want all that on me. I don't know you like that, sir.
Exactly. Excuse me. Well, you know what?
As you cough.
It's like, no, now you can't even sneeze or cough or anything without.
Oh my God. So
real quick, tell it.
I have a nose hair problem, right?
Which we have a product for it by Manscaped.
Which we have a product for, and it hasn't come to me yet, and I cannot wait. But I find that I sneeze more often because my nose hairs are kind of long. But every time I do, I'm like, trust me, I'm okay. It's just I have long nose hairs, which you
can use our product, Manscaped. You can get 20% off. Go to manscaped.com. Use our promo code tags TAGS and you'll get 20% off plus free shipping. There you go. Let's bring in our special guest. Go ahead and grab a spot, Ste7en Foster. He's the author of his own memoir. It's called The Last Alias. And I just read the whole book. It is so good. Ste7en, go ahead and let me make sure I have. Yep, he can. Grab a spot, Ste7en, anytime you're ready. And this is the book, which is really good. Yeah.
That is a sexy cover.
It's a sexy cover, right?
Yeah.
Ste7en, are you there? I'm sure he'll come in a second because we already planned all this. But while we're waiting for him, let me just check my messages, make sure. Okay, I don't think so. The book, it's a memoir of Ste7en Foster, and it's really filled with like story after story. I found it a page turner. Let me just check. Is Ste7en, are you coming in? Grab a spot or text me and let me know. Let me just check my messages. I don't see him yet. Bring your questions though. Are we on Facebook, Kodi?
We are. I was checking. Let me go check the questions on Facebook.
Oh, good. And we're on. And I'm checking our. Yes, we are on YouTube. So yes, and Steve, I see Ste7en there.
I see him too.
Oh, let me just. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, we're having technical. Let me just see. Click to unlock. I think you can grab it. Let me try this. Okay, now try it. It should refresh your page, and it should unlock it. No. It should say grab this spot.
Oh, technology.
I know.
There he
Here he is.
is.
Here he is.
Wait, I had my shtick already and everything.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hello, darling.
Notice it's not, but I was like, why don't people wear masks? Because you can be like Sister fucking Night with this shit from Watchmen. It's awesome.
What? Watchmen in the house? Yes.
Well, let me welcome
And the
you.
other thing
Yes, we'll get all into it.
Go ahead.
Okay, you two shush. We want to welcome our very special guest, Ste7en Foster. He has a brand new book called The Last Alias. This is the book. I just read the whole thing. It's really a riveting memoir. Ste7en, I have to tell you first thing. This book is a page turner. And one of the things is you go through story after story about your life. And at one point I was wondering, each story is really interesting. And I'm like, where's this going? But it is all going somewhere. And it didn't really matter because I want to commend you because you just wrote a really, really good book and it's based on your life. So congrats on that.
Yes.
But I was just talking to someone last night and they said when they were reading it, they were like, how is he going to end this? And it was like, and then it wound up, they did all come together. And so I'm really glad of that. I like the disjointed nature of it, where you can come in and pick up at page 75, or you can start at the beginning or anywhere you can. And it's the same book.
Exactly.
Almost.
And we were talking last night and I still had 100 pages to go. And you said, oh, you're going to get to the really juicy parts of it. And you were correct. It's like, wow. Let me just do a quick synopsis here. You do tell these stories. It's a memoir, like I said. You have such great humor though, which I really appreciated. You worked in the creative industry as advertising, correct? You did.
I was advertising first,
exactly.
and then I went into
the book goes into your successes at the height of your career. You go from copywriter to the anime world, Kodi. I know you would like that. Where
I am in love with
you
that.
get these.
Yes.
Yes, you guys got to talk. He's a comic book fan, and at the height of your career, you are taking these anime films from Japan and you're dubbing them, casting them, rewriting them in better, because so many of these films, and you do a really good job of explaining. I really appreciated it, the technical side of it. As a editor producer, I really loved seeing how you did all that work and all the work syncing the mouth, even though it was like English, is really fascinating. You ultimately, when you are out 100, was it 2006 out? One about, yep.
Yeah.
And you have that. You are in Wikipedia. Foster Eyes is, or what is it? Urban Dictionary. Okay, Urban Dictionary.
So right next to like Rusty Trombone and Booty List.
By the way, what does Foster Eyes really mean?
The actual clinical definition, verbatim definition is fucking up something just because you can, or something. Which I see you gasping your eyes. Yeah, I don't agree with it totally, because I didn't fuck it up just because I thought I could. I fucked up the original anime because I thought I could make it better. So, which was the deal. So, and there's one show that I made so much better that it's now this cult.
So the book continues with all these successes, and I have a direct question in a second, but it goes on to, from all of your successes to an unhealthy, we'll call it a sex relationship, and I know you're going to correct me on that in a minute. You're diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which I know Kodi has a question for you on that. And you are ultimately, and we just ended, which I think should be the whole year, Mental Health Week. And I couldn't think of a better time that your book would come out. And timing is so on point. But I think my first question to you is, at the height of your career, when you're getting all these accolades and out 100, there seems to be a lot in the writing that you don't seem to want to accept success. Am I right on that? And where do you think that comes from? Your childhood?
Yeah, that's so weird that you said that, because I don't know. It's some kind of fucked up vanity, humility, disjunct. I don't know. It's like when the anime fan. I never went to conventions. I never really met with anime fans, and it just was the whole thing that someone wanted my autograph was just so weird to me. I just couldn't. It didn't work. It didn't compute. And then now that I'm out of it and away from it, I've been like going on YouTube where all these ghost stories videos are, and like talking with the fans and answering their questions. And I don't know, now that I'm not in it, I'm real comfortable with it. And I don't know. Maybe it's because you're coming from puritanical white Protestant, WASP family, that, you don't talk about your talents or your achievements, but I don't know. It's something that scrambles my brain, though.
Well, one of the things you do say in the book is you hope that people can somehow find a little bit of themselves in it. And I did relate to, not on the same level, but there was the thing that you did with the anime in particular, and Kodi, I know you'll appreciate this, is taking an opportunity, which is something I've been able to do, and running with it and developing. People have given me opportunities when I didn't really have maybe the expertise or the schooling that I should have had, but I was in my late 30s. I took that opportunity and ran with it. I saw that in what you did with the anime world. You created this whole thing, and that is something that I think to be very proud of. And I'm just wondering if your childhood because you allude a little bit to your childhood, that your parents, talk a little bit about your childhood and your parents. Maybe sometimes it has to do with the way you grew up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how yours was, but I mean, I came from very Beaver Cleaver family. It was just my dad was a lineman for a power company. My mom was a secretary, and I was a writer. And I mean, they just didn't know what to do with me. Like the one story in the book where I tell them I want to be a writer, and they're like, "Well, you could work for the post office."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What?" And so like, and she goes, "Well, they write they send letters." And I was like, "Oh, fuck you!"
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like always feeling like an alien, which then segues into when you grow up gay, you feel like an alien because you're just like you're not. Everything you do is branded no. So it's just with this feeling of an outsider. And I hope that the book would make people feel a little bit more accepting of themselves and their different personas that they use for other people, and just not give themselves a break, at least, because we beat ourselves up so fucking much. It's brutal. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, one of the things, I mean, recently we just had National Coming Out Day, and we learned in your memoir that you were married and you have kids, correct? And I'm just wondering, you just said gay. Do you identify as gay? And did you know you were gay earlier? And can you just talk a little bit about that? Because you do talk about it in the book, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. It was just, I was always, I loved women. I thought women were amazing. And so I was like 90-10. And then, it just became 100 out of 100. It's really weird. I was on a podcast the other day and my son was there, and it was Whiskey Brothers. It was with some comedians, and they were talking, and I was talking, and I was like, he's having to hear all this about him not, never planned.
Yeah. How old is he?
Born and
okay,
29 now.
He can handle it.
But I got divorced. Yeah, he goes. But like, I did love my wife when I was married to her. I really did. I fell in love with her, and but the marriage was bad, and I would have left her for a cactus. It would have been much more pleasant. But I just became gay, and I admitted to being gay, and the life changed. And the kids have been great about it. My kids have been really fantastic. I'm really lucky.
Well, one part, and there's a lot of stories that come out, and one of them is, I'm going to skip to the New York story, because you tell Kodi, he tells this great story of you're on the high of your career, you come to New York City, you stay at the Hudson, which I love so much, and you're Yeah, of course.
Oh, you know
yeah.
Hudson?
You're
Yeah, it's
writing
great.
of that hotel, and it's the Ian Traeger, right? Designed it.
Yeah.
And you are meeting with clients, and you do this vivid New York night. And I know what year it is now. It's right before 9/11, because you
Yeah.
are out with clients and you're having drinks, and it's so fabulous. It reminded me of like the New York days, not pre-pandemic, but even earlier, and you talk about your night going to the Roxy, and you really want a night out at the infamous Roxy. Kodi, do you remember the Roxy?
I don't remember the Roxy.
One of those warehouse clubs. And talk a little bit about that night, because you want to experience the club. You want, if anybody has drugs, you don't achieve any drugs that night, but it sounded like an amazing night in New York. How fun was that to write and like relive that?
It was, I mean, the first part was great. It was really, really strange. I was in New York. It was totally everything I wanted to be. I was living the dream, and I went to the club, and I did score drugs that night. But I'm there, and I meet these people, and the second people I ask, they're like from Dallas, and they're like, "You're from Houston? I'm from Dallas." And then we're doing drugs in the bathroom because I wanted to see it enhanced. And I was
Special
really
K,
wasted,
right?
stoned,
Was the drug?
and yeah, it was K. And I would dance with these two guys on the dance floor, and they were like, "You want to come back home with us?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a little stoned for that." But I left. It was great. Left on a high. I took a biggest bite of the apple that I could. And then I woke up the next morning, and planes are crashing into the building, and everything went down.
Yeah, I think you describe it as you called work back home in Texas,
Yeah.
and
And she was
the person that answered the phone was like, "Oh my God, don't you know what happened? And are you okay?" And it was 9/11.
Yeah, and so I moved to the television, and I turned it on, and I'm still talking to her. And as she's talking, I see the second plane coming. I didn't know that it was second at the time, and I'm just watching it happen. And then it hit, and then I don't know why, but then everything went dead. The phone was gone, and then it was just a scramble. And I drove 3 days later. I drove back to Houston because there were no flights. It was crazy.
I
You remember
do.
that
Yeah,
time?
I
It
was in
awful.
LA.
I mean, it was like a
Right.
short version of the pandemic.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally remember that. And I couldn't help but think, like, because here you are literally on a high, and it's like the other direction of it. And it kind of ends up being a little bit of kind of the way the Last Alias reads, is there's a lot of highs, and then there's some really downward spirals that happen in your life. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah. And I really did like the way it was structured, that you're going on, and it is funny despite the funereal cover of it's so dark.
See, we think.
But
I think it's super.
It's funny. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's what makeup and lighting does. But you're going along just like life. You're moving along. Things are funny. Things are this. Things are that. And then last fourth of the book, you're like, everything goes to shit, and which is like many people have in life, which is what my experience was I was just walking along and then got blindsided by the RA and mental illness and things like that. And so that's why I wrote the book, is so hopefully that people could know they're not alone.
We don't want to give too much away. And Kodi, I want to get to your question in a second, but I want to, which mine precedes this.
Okay.
There's a guy, and you know, we talk about sex over here a little bit. So there's a point in the book. There is a point in the book where it shifts dramatic gears, and you put a warning on there, like it's a whole page, like warning, and it's about a guy that you end up having a sexual relationship with, that we can talk about it in a second. I think my first question is, why did you feel the need? You're clearly talking about mental illness. You're talking about your life on, I think you allude to even rape as a 6-year-old boy. Why did you feel the need to put that warning there? I'm just curious. And just,
no. It's a legitimate question. Totally. I deal with all the personas that I have in this book, these aliases. And we all have versions of ourselves. We're a son or daughter we're a parent, we're a brother, a sister, we're a worker, we do all these things. And I thought I have to address the sexual self as well. And if I was going to do it all across the board, I need to be that honest with my sexual self. And so I put it in there, but it's very graphic. It's very, I mean, don't let your mom read it. I mean, my mom.
Did you read it, Kodi?
I have read parts of it, so I can't wait to wait to read it in its entirety.
Oh, you can.
No, I'm going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
We actually have a deal. We're going to do a book swap. So
yeah.
Oh, you read the book?
No,
Steve has.
I have it, and we're getting together tomorrow. I'm just gonna.
That's not fair. You're talking about my book, and you got what's yours?
No. I have a book that I'm going to loan to him so he can read the book.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah, I just felt it should be warned because it's real. It's very graphic. It's really, and the marketing side of me was like, well, there's never been a graphic sex scene in a memoir, so maybe that's good. But as far as like, I didn't want the story in there on the eve of it going to the printer. I was still on the fence about it, and I was ready. I wanted to cut it really bad. And I talked to 2 girlfriends who'd read it, and I respected their opinion. And they were like, you have to keep it in because it's the most honest story there is. And every girl is going to relate to this because they have a Kendall in there.
The character that we're talking about is called Kendall. You have this amazing sex. It's very detailed, very erotic. I was turned on actually in reading a lot of it, but it also seems unhealthy in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering, with where you're at now, do you still, because it brought up a lot in me of a relationship I had before that I knew this person wasn't right for me, but the sex is really good. And I wanted, in my mind, I know I always made up this sort of, not fantasy, but I know we weren't necessarily on the same page, but that person could text me or call me and I'm like right there for them. And I think we often find ourselves in those situations that aren't even. Would you still go back to a Kendall today? And I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. And I was talking with a reader that called me last night. We had like an hour and a half conversation about it, and he said it was like he described sex as hunger, and I was like, I totally get that. I'm totally on that page. And then he said that in that story, it was like I was hungry, but I wasn't getting fed. And I said, like empty calories. And he said, yes, like empty calories. And that's what it was, because I think we have those sexual relationships, very intense, but kind of then they're willing to give. Like, I think what you were alluding to is you wanted more with this guy than he was willing to give you. And that's a trap you get into, and you go down the spiral, and you have to fight your way out of it, because it's hard when you find this one that's so irresistible and hits all your buttons, but emotionally they are bad news for you.
Kodi, I know you know we talked about this together.
I know about the button for sure. Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Steve?
No, I wanted
Kodi, you wanted to ask a question, because one of the things we learned in the book. Yeah, tell us, Kodi.
He did, like Steve mentioned earlier, you were diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. My mother was also diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I was just kind of curious about how that affected your mental health and mental stability, and what you did to actually combat that and to take that on.
It triggered my nervous breakdown. I don't want to be plot spoiler, but it was just, it ruined everything. I mean, it took away my career. It took away my life. And I mean, I was literally like lying in bed screaming, and it took the doctors a long time to find a medication that worked. But it was, I wanted to like call everyone who ever said they had arthritis and apologize to them, going like, I had no idea what you were talking about, which is what I really like about the book, is I hope I explain things just a little bit so people can understand what mental illness is like and what chronic pain disease is like. Because it's like God or sex. Until you meet God and until you have sex, you have no idea what they're talking about. You think
I'm using that,
but you really don't. I mean, though, right? I mean, you can imagine, but until you do, it's like, oh, this is totally different than what they thought it was. And that's what the pain was. That's what the mental illness was. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I mean, I go to RA chat rooms, and there are still people that like they're in that pain all the time, every day, and no medication has worked for them. But I was really lucky they found that thing, and I'm pain free now, and so I'm really thankful. I'm lucky. Yeah. But for that while there, those 2 years was awful. Is your mom severe, or is she like
stress? It brings it on, so she just has to like make sure she needs her stress. Yeah. So
it's funny because that seems to be a theme in the book, and your doctors even tell you that about how stress and things can just layer upon layer. And I'm just curious, you already said that the book does deal with mental health, and I think it's such an important read for everybody, whether we all are suffering in some way, and there are levels of this. It's your book is really timely on so many levels. You mentioned in the book that there were some friends that really are there for you, and I'm just curious that are you still in contact with those friends? Because there's some really touching moments when it was hard to read at times, and you feel for you what you're going through. And you really gave a descriptive idea of what it can feel like to be that trapped and want to crawl yourself into a hole. But there's these friends that there's a beautiful moment that you're out shopping and your friend's all excited to show you Sprouts, which is the alternative to Whole Foods. And he's excited, and he's a workout person and going to the protein area, and you just cannot get out of that store fast enough. And when he finally takes you home, you look around, he looks around your apartment, and he gets it, and he really steps up to the plate. Talk about those friends, and are you still friends with those that helped you in that period?
Dedicate the book to them. I call them the Magnificent Seven. It's like my parents, my sister, and Fred, Jim, Dale, and Mona. And yeah, Fred, with that Sprouts day, I ran into the house and I hid behind all these barricades that I built because I didn't want they to get me. And he looked around and he saw that it looked like a madman's house, and he called Mona and he said, like, we're in trouble. And so they took me to get okayed, and if I need to go in the hospital or anything like that, and that started the healing. And yeah, they're all very close. Like, we had a hurricane 2 years later, and they came and got me because they knew I wouldn't be able to be on my own, and they took me to their house, and I stayed there, and they saved my life.
Wow.
And I was lucky. I talked to another friend who had a mental health crisis, and she did it alone, and I don't know how she survived it, because I wouldn't, if I didn't have them, I don't think.
And then real quick, what is...
And especially now with COVID.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you had. Well, it's like COVID. I think the only way we're getting through COVID is we're like making these connections with people that we have that are like, it's the only thing that's holding us together. And it's just, you really realize that you have these bonds with these other humans that somehow keep you sustained, and they heal you and help you, and you feel understood. And it's just, I think it's the only fabric that's keeping the nation from tearing itself apart, because we're so divided. And the only thing that keeps us together is the relationships with our friends and our family, which is so magical and so beautiful.
Ste7en Foster, I want to thank you so much. The book is so good. The Last Alias. It really is a page turner. Your storytelling, your humor, along with important information that is your story of mental health. It's very timely, and I really I'm not that quick of a reader. I read this in 3 days and loved it, so I can't say it highly enough. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on the show. I had a really good time.
Thank you.
Where can people follow you real quick before you go?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You can get the book on Amazon, and you can follow me on Instagram at Ste7_Foster. And it's Ste7 with a 7, which the book explains. Instead of a V, it's spelled with a 7. And then you can get me on Facebook, Ste7 Foster, with a V or 7. I can get both. But follow me. It's everyone's been really sweet about the book and reaching out to me, and come on. It's great. It's been really good. Thank you, everybody who's read it and liked it and sent me a message. Thank you so much, and thank you for reading it, and thank you for having me on the show, which is awesome.
We'll put everything on Tag's podcast as well. Thank you so much, Ste7en.
Thanks a lot. Bye, you guys.
Ste7en.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you. Nice to
Kodi.
meet you as well.
Oh my gosh.
Pleasure.
I cannot wait for you to get this book. It's so good. You're going to love
Me
it.
too. I'm really excited now. It really got me when you were like, I read it in 3 days. I was like, well, now I really can't wait.
And we were just talking about, I'm not like the fastest reader ever, but
Yeah.
I've noticed when it's a story like this, we've had a
It
couple
grabs
other
you.
guests on we've been fortunate to have some really great authors that have written about their life stories. And honey, when I get one of those, I just am so into it. And this is such a good one. So I highly recommend it. Take our poll on our questions. Go to patreon.com/talk about gay sex. Kodi, as always, thank you so much.
So lovely. Thank you, my darling.
You can follow Kodi at Mr. More. Go ahead.
Mr. Maurice on Instagram. Yes.
Absolutely. And follow us at Tags Podcast. We're here every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And keep it sexy, but wear your mask. We'll talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.